Reality TV is the modern coliseum where ordinary people are catapulted into the gladiatorial ring of public scrutiny. I've been there. They're left to fend for themselves against an unforgiving digital mob, and more particularly, they're left to fend for themselves in a media environment where any other performer has agents, has managers, has advice. And people in the reality TV world are now forced to capitulate to the production company that has already exploited them. They're forced to do this because of the rules that have been drafted by Ofcom and that followed a committee hearing in 2019, which was truncated by Boris Johnson's calling an election. It was never reconvened. It was supposed to look at the problems of Jeremy Kyle and of Love Island, and it didn't. It heard testimony from mostly production and I think from only 4 participants. These shows promise fame, fortune, fast track to success, but we've seen time and time again what they deliver often is stress, anxiety, and a chronic lack of support for those who step into the limelight. And the assumptions put out by the media, of course, is that the problem for these people is dealing with fame, the lack of fame, the loss of fame, dealing with social media rejection and so on, dealing with a bad edit. But actually, the biggest problem is dealing with a loss of the ability to make one's own decisions. That is taken away from one. I'm particularly in shows like the one I was in, where that loss of agency is something which is removed very quickly. By removing your watch, by removing your time, by removing your control over when you eat, or even when you go to the loo. When you become very dependent on that, very gullible, very vulnerable, and it takes months, years to get back that agency. And without the help, with simply a box-ticking psychiatry, this is compounded and it leads to serious problems. And particularly when the television viewing public don't realise what is happening. And how can they? And the psychiatric evaluation that precedes it is all based on the fantasy that you might have a bad edit or that you might not be able to deal with fame. Nobody talks about the loss of agency. Nobody. The latest voice to join this growing chorus of discontent is Marnie Swindles, the winner of The Apprentice in 2023, who's described the show's aftercare as little more than a tick-box exercise. Her experience of struggling with the emotional fallout while feeling unheard by the production team. It echoes concerns raised in the past, most notably in the tragic cases of Love Island's alumni Sophie Graydon and Mike Thalasitis, whose deaths cast a grim shadow over the industry's duty of care. What's most galling is that this issue has already been scrutinised by Parliament in 2019 following the suicides of the Love Island contestant Mike Thalasitis and a guest from the Jeremy Kyle show. The Digital Culture, Media and Sport Committee undertook the inquiry into reality TV responsibilities and then stopped halfway through. The findings, even what they did reveal, were damning. Mental health support was inadequate. Reality show contestants were exploited. Regulatory oversight was ineffective. Yet, rather than implementing meaningful changes, the entire affair was ultimately kicked into the long grass, with Ofcom, an organisation about as nimble and reactive as a pensioner in a 3-legged race, as some sort of paper shuffling exercise. Ofcom Ofcom was left in charge of managing contestant welfare concerns. It's the same Ofcom that takes months to process complaints, making it almost as useful as a chocolate teapot, as people would so regularly point out in the comments section, when it comes to addressing the immediate emotional needs of reality show participants. And what we're witnessing is a recurring cycle of public outrage, media scrutiny, superficial reforms, and then business as usual. And it's the wrong people doing the wrong jobs. There's a lot to be said about the role of experience. You know, the Roman Senate gets its name from the word senex, which is old man. And it should be the job of those experienced older people to look at this problem and to come up with a solution. Instead, it's like seeing these same people being told to go and fetch a ball. The wrong people are being given the job of sorting things out. And production companies, staffed almost exclusively by interns and by people getting their first experience of media, don't really know what they're doing. They need advice. They need the support of old hacks, of old hands. They need that guidance. Production companies claim to have improved pre-filming psychological screenings and to introduce more support mechanisms post-show, but these measures are patchy, inconsistent, largely performative. And as Swindles points out, psychological assessments do little to prepare contestants for the emotional whiplash of the move from the programme to real life. Whether that's overnight fame, relentless public commentary, or this loss of agency is one thing to gauge resilience in an interview setting. It's quite another to experience a daily barrage of online abuse, media misrepresentation, the crushing realization that reality TV success rarely translates into long-term career stability, and the extraordinary experience of feeling coerced and out of control, which lasts and lasts and lasts because control was taken from the participants in a way that is not so different from R21 technique or R21 technique or R2I technique, which was developed for the British Army to prepare people to withstand torture, because in any other situation this would be torture. The hours without sleep, the long days, the constant voices from microphones above, from speakers above you. The fundamental problem is the commodification of contestants or participants. Reality TV thrives on the illusion that it's providing opportunities, but what it's really doing is using ordinary people as cheap labour. It's really manufacturing characters for public consumption. And when those characters are no longer useful, when the series wraps, when the winner is crowned and the viewership moves on, these people, these participants, these contestants are discarded, left to navigate the psychological wreckage alone. And this is especially true when those who are edited into the villain role or become the social media punchlines often endure public humiliation long after the cameras have stopped rolling. So what should be done? First, we need the Committee on Reality TV and Duty of Care to be reconvened. We need the Ofcom thing to be shelved, paused. We need proper people with experience to testify in the Commons. We need to enshrine more robust protections in law. We need to be aware of this issue of the loss of agency. If production companies profit from contestants' visibility, they should be required to fund comprehensive long-term mental health support for all participants, not just winners or high-profile figures. They should be compelled to ensure that there are professional agents and managers on hand who are not connected to the programme. Second, Ofcom's role needs to have a serious rethink. Its bureaucratic sluggishness is incompatible with the immediacy of the challenges reality TV participants face. A specialised oversight body with the power to mandate minimum aftercare standards should be established to hold production companies properly to account. Lastly, we need to have a cultural reckoning about our own complicity as viewers. It's all too easy to treat reality TV participants as disposable figures of entertainment, but they are real people with real vulnerabilities. And if we demand ethical journalism and corporate responsibility in other industries, why should television be exempt? Why should somebody who is providing entertainment as a participant or a contestant be denied the professional support of unions, of managers, and of agents simply because they are seen as disposable, simply because they are, quote, enjoying themselves? Did you enjoy it? You had fun. No, you worked very hard. I know. I was there. I did it. I was in a program called The Circle. I was in Series 2. And I enjoyed filming The Circle, but I could not have anticipated the aftermath. I could not have anticipated that feeling that my agency had gone. I could not anticipate the sense that I was being manipulated long after the program had wrapped. And to continue in our current path is to accept that more participants in reality TV, more contestants will suffer in silence, more preventable tragedies will occur, and the machinery of reality TV will remain as coldly indifferent and as profitable as ever. And that, frankly, is not entertainment. That is negligence dressed up as spectacle. That is a gladiatorial display. The committee needs to reconvene. Action needs to be taken, and we must stop pretending that ticking a few mental health boxes is anything other than the regulatory equivalent of slapping a bandage on a bullet wound. We need to recognise that care for particularly the younger people who participate in these programs must be offered by people with experience, by the Senex, by the older people who actually know what they're doing, instead of sending them off to Ofcom bodies and to nonsense, which is simply there as a tick box exercise. We need to ensure that people on these programs get proper professional care. That means agency representation. That means union representation. That means proper management independent of the production company that is making the program. That means proper support. And if we can't do that, then these programs ought to come off air. These programs ought never to be shown again. These programs ought never to be made again, because they are utterly, utterly exploitative. They may be fun. They may be fun to watch. They may be fun to do. But production companies don't know when to stop. And in a way, that's their fault. But equally, they're human, aren't they? Production companies do what they do. And how do you stop controlling people? If that's what you've been doing for a month, how do you stop controlling people? You have regulatory oversight. You have people from outside who come in and take over. Not PR machines, but agents and unions and managers who can sort out and clean up the mess that has been created, and who are there solely and simply for the participants.